Hello, everybody. Welcome to Gamma Evolution LLC YouTube channel. So today we wanted to come on and just kind of introduce ourselves and give you guys more of an understanding of the team, who we are, how we got here, and kind of like where we're taking all this, where we want to go. So with all of that being said, my name is Shayla, and I'll let you introduce.
I think Shayla, with like all of your 50,000 followers, there's probably a lot of people wondering more about you, like your story of how you got to where you are now. And definitely the fact that you're progressing attracts a lot of attention. So we wanted to tell like your backstory and why you're doing what you're doing. I think we'd all love to hear that.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's been a wild journey and I wouldn't change any of it. I think that this passion, this desire that I feel to not only take control of my own life, but also to begin to like be a light post, so to say, for all of those who are seeking, has been with me since I was a child. There's always been just this feeling of wanting to do more, a feeling of there has to be more than what I'm seeing with my physical eyes. So I love adventure and I love exploring. And that led me down a path that I would have never dreamt of going down. I think that for me, the spiritual journey really started when I first took psychedelics in Nebraska when I was 15 years old. And so it was just like an awakening to the fact that what I had felt as a child held validity, that there was more out there than what I was seeing with my physical eyes. And that really propelled me forth on my journey of self-discovery and desire to understand who I am and what my place is in the universe and specifically in this world. So when it came to college, as I came to make that decision, I knew I wanted to take an alternative route, and someone had recommended I go to school at Naropa University in Boulder, Colorado, and study traditional Eastern arts, because prior to high school graduation, I had been introduced to yoga. So I was really blessed in that sense, that even though I was living in a very conservative place, somehow, some way, there was always like someone to bring in just like a little nugget of truth, or to open a door into a new way of perceiving life. So really grateful for that. And I decided that that was going to be a good fit for me. That sounded exciting. Boulder, Colorado, like to me, the first word that came to mind was people and culture. And those were two things that I really didn't have a lot of in Nebraska. So I moved to Colorado, despite everyone in my family telling me, family and friends, that it was silly for me to do. It definitely was not what I expected. I thought I was going to go to college and be happy and, live the Colorado life. And it just didn't pan out that way. What I realized when I moved out was all of the grief and the pain that I was holding on to that I had experienced from early childhood. And it became increasingly difficult for me to focus on my studies and for me to basically show up in my everyday life. I was in a really dark, really low place. I didn't know myself, very depressed. And again, I started to get that feeling that there has to be more. Like, this is not what life is all about. Why am I experiencing this? And that propelled me to start seeking. And I started asking people like, hey, what can I do? This is what I'm going through. And I mean, to ask random people for advice, you're going to get answers all over the board. But one of the things that someone recommended was that I get a tarot reading. And I was like, tarot, I heard that is not good. And coming from a very religious background, but I was curious, again, like just the adventurous, the desire to dive into things that I had experience with was present. So I got my first tarot reading, and I was very, again, skeptical. And the man looked like a literal wizard with a long white beard. And he was just so happy, to the point where I was like, how could somebody be so happy? Just like very cheery and bright and bubbly. And I was not in that place. I was very much so like arms crossed, like, what's going on? Like, tell me my answers. I don't really know if I believe this. The first thing he said was he asked what my name was, obviously. And I was like, Shayla. And he said, what? And had one of those like, ah, moments. And he was like, Shay, Shaw, shaman. And I was like, what? Like, I had heard the word. I was living in Boulder, but I didn't fully understand what that meant. And I just took it for a grain of salt. Okay, like what's going on? And then he got into the cards and he had asked me what I was, like what my intention was for being there. And I had expressed I was thinking about leaving school because I was just going through a lot and I feel like there's more.
Mm.
The first card that he pulled was the magician. And he got really excited again. And he was like, the magician, you can do anything. I was like, okay. And then the next card he pulled was the world card. And then it was, I don't really remember what he said in particular about the world and the energy he was getting, but I remember what I was feeling. It was like I had confirmation. I just needed to hear that I could do it. I could take a leap of faith. And so he actually recommended that I stayed in Colorado and just like tough it out because I'm going to a good school. Just like go for a little road trip into the mountains. You'll be just fine. And I was like, okay, thank you. But no, I've already made up my mind. So me leaving college was like the biggest leap of faith that I had taken up until that point. And it was just like a steady progression of tests and initiations. Am I going to listen to my intuition or am I going to challenge the status quo? And every time when faced with that decision, ultimately it was, I have to listen to my intuition. I don't understand this, but I just feel I have to listen to this. So yeah, when I dropped out of school, I moved out to Taos, New Mexico, knowing nothing about Taos, nothing at all, thinking that I was going to be joining an intentional community. And when I got out here, there was no community, and that was the start of a very toxic time in my life. So basically, I was in the mode of running. Like I knew that there was more. I wanted to seek, but my mindset was more, if I move, maybe this stuff will go away. Maybe it'll just miraculously heal. So I wasn't necessarily moving with the intention of like, yeah, I'm gonna heal and I'm gonna face all this stuff because I didn't even know what that was. So what I did was I attracted an individual to reflect back to me some of the subconscious programmings and the ways that I was thinking and feeling about myself. And I again didn't realize that. I didn't know that narcissists were a thing or that people would intentionally manipulate you, but that became my life. And in that time I was so broken so lost that I was almost like desperate, and I started just like, I would read any spiritual books that I could get my hands on, and I really started to take my yoga practice to the next level. I was living off grid, so the connection to the natural world was a lot stronger. But as I was in pain, it felt like the only thing I could feel from the earth was her pain as well. And so it was a period of deep anger and confusion and frustration and just kind of seeing the world as a really dark place. I say I danced with death and while I was out there multiple times of just like getting very close, too close to the veil in a very not healthy way. And one time I had pushed things a little bit too far and experienced a drug overdose on the mesa in the middle of the desert in the middle of summer. And it was the most excruciating pain, excruciating experience I had yet to go through once again. So it was like I was just constantly experiencing these horrible, horrible things and not knowing how to get myself out of those loops, the mental patterns that were creating this kind of environment for myself. Specifically with the overdose, though, that turned into one of the most impactful experiences of my entire life, because I finally realized, life is sacred and I'm on this planet for a reason. And I think when you're given the choice, as I was, to stay on this plane or to move on, it really put things into perspective, the grand scheme of life and the fact that I'm actually on this planet for a reason. It was an indescribable feeling, but just like, I have to be here. I have to go back. I have work to do. I'm 18 years old. Like, I'm too young to leave. And I actually don't know if everybody gets the opportunity to choose if they want to come back if they leave their body or something happens, but I was given that choice. And it took me a handful of years to be able to integrate that experience, but it stuck with me energetically, just this deep knowing that I'm here to do something big, not only for myself, but for the collective. And then it became very clear that if I want to do this, because I feel like I'm meant to do something big, I feel like I'm supposed to be a voice, I have to heal myself. I have to figure out how, again, I got myself into these situations. But the first step was obviously to get out of the relationship, which when I tried to leave the dynamic, it was like my life was on the line essentially, and there was that fear of, will I die trying to get out of the situation? If so, maybe I'll just be submissive and energetically, emotionally numb myself so I can be in this quote unquote safe space because it feels familiar. I'm used to belittlement or disempowerment. It was, the first half of my life was definitely painful, and then it all came to a head 18, 19, 20 years old. And in that time period I would hear the voice of God, the voice of angels, just like coming through and reminding me that it's all going to be okay. And I remember vividly one day on the mesa, I started dancing and I was very disconnected from my body. And so it was one of the first times I had really allowed myself to express in a year or two. I got this vision of like my future self, 24, 25, 26 years old. Like I looked just a little bit more mature, but I was still youthful. And she said to me, keep going. Like, look at me, look at where you have the potential to go. You have the strength within you. And it was like an incredibly impactful moment of just like, wait a minute, wait a minute, wait a minute. I think that I actually have the strength to change my life, even though I feel like I've been living on rock bottom for so long. Looking at the light, it seemed like an impossible climb to get out of the situation that I was. And again, over time, I just gradually developed the strength to finally exit the situation. So that was, yeah, probably the most impactful 2 years of my life, I would say, in the sense that I really was pushed beyond normal limits and boundaries. But I feel like if we go so far on one end of the spectrum, it literally paves the way for us to go that far and then some on the other end of the spectrum. So I decided that I really, again, I needed to heal, and I didn't really know what that meant, and I didn't really know what I was healing from, but I knew I just needed to spend time with myself and nature. So for a while, I on and off lived out of my car, in the woods, out of a tent. I would go back to the mesa where I had originally moved, and lived in a shack, literally a shack. Nothing, like just like some walls, a roof, and a floor. Yeah. And eventually had a friend bring out a wood burning stove. But yeah, I was living in very harsh conditions, and just I knew it was what I needed to do, but it wasn't easy. But over time, as I allowed myself to disconnect from people, I didn't have social media. I don't even think I had a phone. I think I was using an iPad at that time. So I'd have to like connect to internet to even text or call anyone. I was just completely in my own world, like absorbed in the quote unquote demons, which are just psychological programmings that were playing out in my mind. And I also knew that it was the only person that was going to get me out of this is me. That's just how it is. People can help me, and people did help me. And I always received clues or like the right person coming into my life at the right time. But ultimately, if change was to happen, it was going to happen within me. So yeah, over a period of like two years, I finally started to realize the overall vision and started to receive like downloads of why everything was happening and what I could do moving forward. Because I've always been a dreamer, a visionary, but again, that was really suppressed early on in life. And I didn't know how to express my feminine nature. I didn't know how to allow myself to just naturally be creative and expressive. But that was what I desperately longed for. And during my time in the woods, that's when I actually taught myself tarot, because I realized that there has to be something here. Like the cards, they didn't lie. So I started doing experimentation and working with my psychic gifts, studying astrology and continuing to deepen my yoga practice, which was pivotal in getting me through that relationship, because some of the trauma I experienced was so intense. Like when I was physically abused, I wasn't processing what was happening, and then I just get flashes later on like, whoa, I can't believe that actually happened. And I truly believe that if I wouldn't have had yoga, I don't know if I would have been able to get out of it, because it was just like my saving grace, a time where everything stopped and I could just be with myself and
Process that.
yeah, exactly, and process. As my journey with tarot deepened, it was a really I yeah, just magical connection. I couldn't put words to it, but I knew that there was something here and I really wanted to understand what it was. And I also wanted to help, not help, but share this gift that I had discovered with other people. And one day in the woods, I think this was September of 2019, I just felt like I was ready. I woke up and I didn't really know what ready was, but I heard a voice that says, "You're ready, go." Like, "You're ready, go." And I was like, "What? No." But what came to mind immediately was launching a YouTube channel and actually beginning to share the art of tarot with the collective. So, tarot was kind of like my gateway into my psychic gifts. I always felt like psychism was bad. It was a negative thing. It was something to be afraid of. And I've always had a really strong connection to the spirit realm. So it was like, as I was denying my psychic gifts, I was also denying myself. So tarot allowed for me to kind of integrate the two and realize that there's nothing wrong with being in tune or having premonition or just like intuitive nudges, following the heart, all of these things that I just naturally felt inclined to, yet society said was weird or I need to not talk about. So it was definitely another one of those moments where I had to choose my intuition over status quo with my launching of tarot. I actually went back to Nebraska and I launched my YouTube channel in my mother's house, but I wasn't telling her that I was reading tarot at the time. And she had come into my room and saw my tarot cards, didn't say anything, but 2 days later she asked me to leave because of the tarot cards. And so I just kind of like, okay, swallowed it. But I said, I need to keep doing this. I need to keep doing this. And so I moved in with my dad and I kept doing it. And people started reaching out and saying, "Hey, I want to work with you." And money started coming in for the first time in my life from something that I was doing. And being an entrepreneur, it's been a dream of mine since I was a child. I just intuitively knew I don't work well with a boss. And it's a classic Leo thing to say, but I really feel like the guidance that I receive in regards to business and entrepreneurship comes from spirit, and to have the ability to just kind of free flow channel is so beautiful. It, again, that was another idea that a lot of people didn't quite understand. And many people were like, "Shayla, you need money, you need a real job." And I said, "No, I need to heal. I need to find myself and what I am on the planet to do. And then I'm going to turn that into my work. And that's what I'm going to do with my life." And so, yeah, for, I don't know, 4 or 5 years, like I lived with literally no money, like $25 a week in college and then $500 a month, if that, moving forward. So I was really looking for happiness, I realized then. And I knew that I have my whole life to build and to create what the world called success. But I want to figure out who I am and find happiness within before I pursue this path. That just felt like most important to me. And I didn't realize it, but I was literally laying the foundation to do what I'm doing now. At that point in my life, I felt really lost, like I said, and confused. And I don't understand how it's all going to come together. And at that time, I remember thinking, like, how does yoga and astrology correlate? Like, I like all these things, but how do they come together? And so, yeah, there's always been a desire to kind of like, I don't know, I guess just live from a place of wholeness, wholesomeness, and to share that with the world. So YouTube was like the big debut in 2019. And it was the first time that I started interacting with people that I felt like knew me on a deeper level. I really started to feel like I was finding my tribe, finding community, having people reach out and say, "Shayla, like your readings are resonating with me. They're helping me get out of difficult situations," was, I don't even have words for it, because that was the intention all along. And my traumatized past self was just rejoicing. And I remember just feeling like, okay, everything happened exactly as it was meant to. Because if I wouldn't have gone through that, I wouldn't have taken the time to really get to know who I am and what I'm supposed to do in the world. So I'm really grateful for all of this struggle. And I think a part of what I'm doing now, or again, some of the passion that I feel for doing this work, is to also bring inspiration to other people who are struggling, because it's not the end of the road. It's actually like the beginning of an entirely new, beautiful chapter in our lives. And I think that when it comes to experiencing difficulties, we've all done it. But as a collective, if we change the way that we view quote unquote difficult times, we're more easily able to step into the other side. It's like a process of recognizing that there's nothing wrong with us, first of all, but we're experiencing things in order to release so we can step into who we truly are. For the world to heal and for us to ultimately usher in the new earth like we all are seeing and feeling like is going to happen, it starts with the people, healing the people and allowing for this space for people to heal. Again, when I was going through my own healing journey, I didn't have any support, none at all. And I did really feel isolated and alone on the planet. And it made the healing kind of like lag or drag out. I realize now, because sometimes we just need to feel held and safe. We need to feel like we're in a safe place to experience whatever we're experiencing. And again, at that time, I wasn't aware that that was something that I deserved, that it was okay for me to experience what I was experiencing. It kind of felt like, oh, I've gone through all of this darkness. I can't be around anybody because I don't want to project, and I just have to do it all myself. And now I realize, like, when I go through something and I reach out, like if I send you a message, I'm like, hey, I'm going through this. This happened. And you just hold space for that and then also give a little bit of feedback. It's so much easier to elevate out of those states and then just to kind of like see objectively. So the importance of community was really highlighted in this journey as well, and just like the recognition that we're so much stronger when we come together, so much stronger. So yeah, that it's been quite a journey. That was a lot, but that's
I want to ask you too, what are some of the other things that you do like outside of tarot?
Outside of tarot, I do quantum energy healing, which I'll take a moment to kind of talk about that. Basically, what it is tapping into one's energetic body and just realigning the chakras and sealing up the aura. Sometimes as well, I will do subconscious reprogramming in the brain. And the whole premise of this work, it's so beautiful, is the essence of unconditional love. I awoke into my gift as a healer when I was out on the mesa, very spontaneously. Again, on psychedelics, it was like the first time I had realized that maybe I have healing hands. And my grandmas were both very, very powerful women, and I always felt very protected in their presence. And in retrospect, I'm like, wow, I think that this may have been passed down through the lineage. So anybody can heal. It's really just a matter of tapping into the heart and then activating the third eye to be able to navigate through the energetic realm. So that's essentially all I'm doing, is serving as kind of like an extra boost of energy for the clients to find themselves in a place of wholeness, because that's a beautiful thing about the body. When given the space to heal, the body will naturally heal itself. Just the craziness of the world that we live in today, it's very easy to be thrown off energetically or to absorb an energy that now is stuck in our chakra system that we didn't know was there or we didn't intend to take on. And so I find constantly coming back to the energy body and just like resetting is one of the most beneficial things that we can do as we are evolving and also becoming more powerful. With great power comes great responsibility. And so I'm also a metaphysical practitioner. And I've been studying metaphysics for almost 2 years now. And again, it was really synchronistic the way that I came across the school. Actually, just a Facebook friend posted that he had just got his master's degree through University of Metaphysics. And I was like, wait a minute, what's that? That sounds really cool. And so I looked into it, and I just really, there was a deep soul resonation. And I felt like I was ready to now kind of dive deeper into the intellectual aspect of what I had been doing prior, because my time in the woods, I had no clue what I was doing. Really, I was just kind of like experimenting and letting my intuition guide me. So it's been a really beautiful time to kind of like dissect on a deeper level what goes on in the energy body. Essentially, what is underneath the fabric of reality, what we see as matter. It is all energy. Understanding like the way that the universe works, I think is, it basically like opens up for the brain hemispheres to communicate properly, because we're feeding the masculine side of the brain with the intellect in which it wants to try to understand the feminine, the place of creation. Yeah, I'm a metaphysical coach, and basically what we do is it's a journey of rediscovering who it is that we truly are, like the true nature of self and the true nature of reality. I think that that's why I fell in love with metaphysics, is because it's based off of absolute truth, and we're taking into account both worlds, so to say, the physical and the spiritual. And everything, every imbalance that we experience in our physical life stems from some sort of imbalance in the energy body. So with that perspective, it becomes a lot easier again to heal, to transform, and to change the way that our lives look. And ultimately, at the end of the day, we as human beings all deserve to live a happy, healthy, abundant, successful life. Many of us have been told otherwise, and the journey is then a process of reprogramming and allowing ourselves to align to new timelines. So that's a little bit of what coaching looks like. And then I'm also in the process of creating a course on how to read tarot, which I am really excited about, because for me, tarot is, it's like a personal relationship that I have with the cards, and it's a portal, it's a way to tap into our higher self and to really establish firm foundation in this dimension and in higher dimensions with that in which we call ourself. Yeah, so those are some of the other things that I do. Also, I will share, I have a story I want to share about doing grid work, because this is something I do kind of like behind the scenes. I feel like, yeah, I do I do so much. It's like I'm just constant. I guess that my mission in life right now is to do everything with the essence of unconditional love. That has really been the guidance, is just to like stay in my heart in everything that I do. And I'm finding that it takes me to deeper depths. And sometimes like I will kind of like transcend this reality and move into another reality, which happens when we lucid dream or when we dream at night or find ourselves in deep meditation. So yesterday, a friend of mine actually asked me to help her with something. The request kind of shook me a little bit. It was definitely not what I expected, but she has a home in a different state and said that when she lived there, she knew that there were spirits. She knew that somebody had killed herself there. She knew that there had been like pretty big traumatic wars that had happened on that land, but she's very in tune, and she had one of her shaman friends go and like kind of assess the land, and he said that when she was living in the house, her energy was kind of able to neutralize some of the frequencies. When she left, basically everything spiraled out of complete control, and the home turned into what she called a portal to hell, a literal hell pit. Yeah, so it sounds science fiction, but like my intuition was like, whoa, this really happens. And so basically the plan of action was to go into this space. Her shaman friend he actually traveled to the home and did a little clearing ceremony to close this portal and ultimately like raise the frequency of the entire property. So I came in a little bit late to the time that they had started, and I felt like that was all a part of the divine plan. It was a lot harder on my body than I expected it to be. So basically, the way that I got there was I found myself in deep meditative state, spent some time just aligning my chakra body and shielding myself and calling in my guides and my angels and my ancestors to help me with this work. And then again, to come into my heart and start beaming that energy. And I felt amazing. I felt great. I did not feel like I was walking into a portal to hell, but I could feel almost like resistance around me to the energy that I was holding. And the more time I spent here, it became increasingly difficult to hold on to this frequency, to stay in my heart. And I shared a little bit of this with you prior, but like when I was sitting in meditation, so like a fly would hit my hand, or like I would feel something and like have to scratch my body. It was like things kept happening that would bring me back into my physical body and out of my heart and my third eye. So yeah, it was rather interesting. But essentially what I was guided to do was to transmute some of the I don't even know what to call it, like energy beings, so to say, into higher vibrational frequencies. It was, yeah, very much so like a video game, very crazy. But the end of this whole meditation, I was guided to kind of like seal this portal with my left hand, and then bring the vibration of the entire property up with my left hand. And in doing so, on that final push down and seal of this energy, it was like my right hand turned into a ball of fire. I was outside, but it wasn't like, no other part of my body felt on fire except my hand that was pushing this portal down. So it was rather fascinating experience. But I do a lot of work in the energetic realms and neutralizing frequencies. And I really think that that is what light work is. And a lot of the community would probably consider themselves light workers. So I think as well, a part of my mission is just to kind of normalize like this aspect of life. Like, a lot of us think that we're crazy when we go into deep meditative states or have crazy experiences, or maybe even do work in dream state, but it's an actual reality, and we live in multiple realities all at once. So yeah, the mission is ultimately to stand in my truth and integrity in each and every moment, and hold the space for all beings everywhere to also come into that space of safety, to find their truth and embody who it is that they know themselves to be.
That's so beautiful.
Yeah. So now, Bree, I would love to hear more about your backstory. We would love to hear more about your backstory, and yeah, kind of how you got here and what your role is in Gamma.
Cool. Yeah. I see so many parallels to your story, to my story. It's like almost ridiculous. Like, we're both the oldest child in our family. We come from a religious background. We went through a complete like hermit phase. It's almost like the tarot, right? Of like all these different archetypes that we went through in our life. Like, I have very similar ones. In my background, going like all the way back and then going to go forward into now, is I had a religious background growing up. And so I believed in God when I was a kid, and like going to church and stuff like that. I was really into it. Like, I read my Bible, I did my prayers. I believed wholeheartedly in the God that they were selling me on. And then, well, the church that we went to actually shut down, and my mom never found another church that she liked. So we just kind of took the practice into our home, and it was like, okay, well, we know how to do this because we've been going to church for so long. So like, let's do it at home. And then somehow I saw the perspective of like, we didn't have Christianity in our home before. We only had Christianity at church. And that perspective now of like, well, there's like Christianity time and then there's like regular life time. I was like, wait a second, like there's an inconsistency here. But I really believed, like, I believe that God loved me. I believe that I did have dimensional, transcendental, like kind of experiences with God, whatever that was. But like, something opened me up to like, okay, this is different than what they're trying to sell me on it for. Like, the story just doesn't add up. I had so many questions. I would go to my mom and try to ask her different questions, and she'd be like, I don't know, sweetie, but like, just keep reading your Bible and like doing the things that you're doing. And then I'd try to go to like somebody who I thought would know more, and they didn't have the answers either. And I was like, how do you guys like study this your whole life and you still don't have answers? That doesn't make any sense to me. Like, we're all smart enough to ask the question, so why don't we have any answers? When I moved out of my family home, like purposefully at 18, I was like, all right, I'm old enough to move out on my own. I'm going because I need to find answers. And actually, a very lucky experience that I had in my life is through middle and high school, my best friend of now 15 years is Muslim. So I had this kind of intro into another religion. And I was like, well, there's no way that you can follow this wholeheartedly and I can follow this wholeheartedly, and like, we're wrong, you know, like someone's wrong here. Like, I just don't believe that. Like, you're a good person, I'm a good person. We're both praying and reading our text, and how could there be like something misconstrued here? I don't understand, and I need to understand this, because nothing was stopping me from loving her. I was like, how could someone deny this person entry into heaven? This is a beautiful human being. I love her with my whole heart, and she only brings joy to my life. How could it be that my God would deny her? Or how would it be that her God would deny me? So when I got out of my family's home, I actually went to the library and got every single sacred text that they had at the library. I checked every single one out. I had a huge stack of books and I just went into hermit mode. I basically, like, when I moved out, kept to myself. I didn't really even try to hang out with friends. I was just like full seeking mode. Like, I need to read these texts. I need to figure out what this is. I read so many. I've read like every single sacred text that there is out there, like the Tibetan Book of the Dead and like all these different religions, trying to figure out what is the commonality. Is there a common space here? Because I feel in my heart that, and I didn't realize it was my heart until now, but I felt in my heart that there was a truth that encompassed everything. So I actually also, I love that you said this because I've never really like spoken about it. I was super open to doing psychedelics because I had a friend that literally had a life-changing experience after he did his first psychedelic experience. And I saw that transition and I was like, whoa, like something happened here. He was just more like free-flowing, like open-minded, happy. He had kind of like reframed a few like traumatic experiences that had happened in his life. And I was never interested in that kind of thing before because of my religious background, but I saw the personal experience and I was like, something's here, like something's interesting about this. And I think if I go about it the right way, I researched into it and I like found it, you know, the exact amount that I need to take, the exact setting I need to be in, and kind of thought of it from like a clinical setting of like, I'm not just doing this to do something fun or get out of myself or escape myself. I'm doing this purposefully to dive into myself, to have introspection. And I don't know what that's going to be like, but I'm just going to go into it with the best intention that I can possibly go into it with. And oh my gosh, it literally was so literally life-changing. I think I would still be like that person who's holding so much guilt and shame about not following the religion that I was brought up in if I didn't have that experience, because it was kind of like one of those like crescendo moments of everything that I had ever thought was the truth got confirmed in that experience. And even as a kid, like I saw spirits. Anyone in my family who was going to die, like they would come to me in the astral realm and like let me know that they were going to die beforehand. And I would tell my parents and they'd be like, no, that's weird. And then it would happen and they're like, oh, okay, that's weird. I would know people were pregnant. I like premonitions and things like that happened too that got confirmed. But in my family, it was like, that's like devil talk. Like we don't talk about that. That's like prophesying, not from the Bible. So like, we're not going to talk about that. Just like forget about that, and kind of like shaming it and making me feel guilty for it. So when I had this psychedelic experience, it made me realize, oh my gosh, those are my gifts. Those are the things that I naturally can do. I've been astral projecting since I was like 5 years old. So it just confirmed all of those things. And I was able to like recontextualize my whole life experience and be like, oh, okay, but it's not bad that I like believed all this other stuff before. It actually contributes to like my ability to have more compassion and understand things the way that I do now. It's just like I always say, like, you won't be able to understand anything if you don't start from somewhere, right? So like where we started, the blueprint of our life is just, it's just the starting grounds, but there's so much more outside of that. I actually say like, if in gaming, there's like NPCs, which are non-person players. I say that I was like an NPC until I did psychedelics, and then like I really woke to like the game, right? And I was like, oh, okay, like I know what to do now. This is cool. I got all my gifts, and like now I'm just gonna focus on building this stuff. But I still had a very like separated life. I had my work life, and I was like a super workaholic because I wanted to get out of the kind of like financial standing that my family was in and that I was born into. And I knew that that was something that I wanted, but I also had like the secret side of my life that I didn't really talk about because I didn't have those kind of people in my life to even talk about it with. So even my partners that I had like throughout that time didn't like that side of me. Like they freaked them out, you know, like that I was into like spirituality and stuff. And they asked me like, well, why do you meditate all the time? Or like, why do you like do prayers? And why do you have like incense burning all the time? Like weird stuff. And I just kind of hid that side of my life until the last like 2 years, actually. I just realized I had everything. Like I was married at the time. I had a dog. I had like the nice house downtown. Like I had the job that you would think that I would like really love. And I was working towards like all the success. I had the nice car, like all the things that you would think that someone would be happy with, right? But on the inside, I was so I was depressed. I was so sad. I came home from like hanging out with the people who were my friends at that time, and I just felt like I came home to myself, and I was like, oh, okay, now I can be myself. Like now I can actually talk about the things that I'm interested in, or like go online and talk to like some strangers, because these are the things that I don't normally get to express in my everyday life. It was almost like on a day-to-day basis, people were only interacting with like the tip of the iceberg of who I actually am. It didn't reach the depth of me, and it didn't feel fulfilling because of that. So I just decided like I'm starting from scratch, like literally starting over. I don't care if that means I have to lose everything that I have to my name. I know that if I follow this intuition, like you said, like you just had this intuition of something that you needed to do that was completely outside of the norm of like anything that was ever showed to you. I was like, I'm just gonna do it. I got a divorce. I moved out on my own. I literally had like a blow up mattress on the floor and no other furniture for like a year. And I just had my books, and I spent time in nature, and I really dove into again, but this time I didn't say this is a side of my personality. I said, this is actually who I am. This is what I want to have my life be like. I can be happy with only having a little right now because I have everything in terms of being authentic and expressing who I really am. And so through that, I actually started attracting like amazing opportunities, amazing people into my life. Like Shayla's one of them. I started sharing on TikTok because Spirit told me. Spirit was literally like, I know you don't want to. I know this is something you don't like doing. You don't share on social media, but you are going to find the right people if you just start authentically posting on TikTok. And I was like, TikTok? I don't even have a TikTok. What are you talking about? And so I got TikTok and I did a 60-day challenge, and I met Shayla and like other cool friends who were into the same kind of things as me. But on top of that, I've had like amazing conversations with people who were like me a few years ago that only had like this secret side of their personality, but they were afraid to like come out about it. They've had conversations with me. And then like through that experience, I was able to realize like the marketing, because I have a marketing background for the last like 6 years. That's been my trade. That was like my day job before. And then like my to myself time was like the spiritual stuff. I was like, there's got to be a way to like infuse these two beautiful sides of my life, because I think marketing is an art. It's just an art form that has probably been used the wrong way a lot of times in capitalist society we live in. So I was like, how do I fuse these things to where now it's not just a tip of the iceberg in the spiritual aspect or in the marketing aspect, but it's like everything all together all at once. So now I actually get to do that. And I can literally say the only reason that I get to do that is from being authentic, not hiding any of myself, totally expressing myself, setting boundaries with people who don't allow me to be myself. Yeah, that's why I'm here. And I help Shayla with like the marketing stuff, which is like the website and different things like that. But overall, I feel most of the work that I do is energetically like being aligned with myself, being authentic, and following my idea, I guess, of like what would be most exciting. Like, how would it be most exciting to use the skills that I've built? How would it be most exciting to give to someone? Not even about me. Like, what would I be able to give that like someone would really like to receive in terms of the things that we're offering? So yeah, I'm super grateful to have like the container for that, especially considering it's been a long time coming.
So just recently you added a new service to the website, which we're so excited about. Share a little bit.
Yes. Yeah. So it's called Mindset Mastery, which at first I thought was kind of like lame, because I was like, oh, people are just going to think it's like mindset. But really, I am a true firm believer of like our mental energy is what creates our reality. All is mental, right? That's the first universal law. So I'm a big believer in that. And I know that mindset changes everything. And part of that is like the reprogramming stuff and going through generational traumas and rewriting and rewiring our brain. But a lot of times it comes down to just having the support, really the feedback to see the parts of ourselves where we don't see. There's like little holes in our mindset, because you can have this idea that you want to be more positive, but on a day-to-day basis, you're so habitually talking about and doing the things that you're doing that you don't realize that like, okay, well, here you're complaining. So here you're expecting lack. That's actually recreating that in your life again, even though you don't want to attract that. So it really just does take feedback. And that's something I learned the hard way. Also going into hermit mode, like coming out of hermit mode and finally connecting with and like paying for services like this myself, I realized like how valuable it was for me. So I got my NLP certification because I believe the way we tell stories in our head is the way that our life keeps playing out. So when you tell the story differently, you have different results, right? So that's basically what help people do, but also including all the fun stuff like gene keys and quantum understanding of like mechanics of how the world works and things like that. So yeah, I just get to include like all the things that I find interesting and uniquely like package it for that person so they can have a deep reflection of themselves in a way that's safe.
In a way that's safe. I think that's the most important part. And yeah, the process of surrendering to the fact that like we can't do it all alone, I think is a really pivotal point in the spiritual journey too, and just kind of like humbling ourselves to be like, hey, I think maybe I could benefit from a little bit of outside help. Yeah, definitely is powerful. And I love that you decided to upload Mindset Mastery, like and focus specifically on the mindset, because it can be very easy in the realm of spirituality to fall too much into our feminine, the dreamer, intuition, psychic realm, and forget about the masculine side of our brain, the analytical, the programming essentially. And I know for myself, like specifically when I was in the woods, there was so much fear and so much worry, and just like I knew I was trying to figure something out, but rather than being like, okay, universe, give me the answer, like, oh, wait for it, it was like, no, I gotta figure this out and like push. And it was a belief about work and how success will come. And I love the way that our services complement each other as well. I know nothing about gene keys, and you do. And I'm more so acquaint with the language of astrology, but it's been incredible to work with you and to build. And for the first time in my life, I feel like the vision, the vastness of the vision actually has the potential to come through. Not to say that I didn't believe in it, but I was just like, I can't do this all myself. And so I was just I think for the past year, Gamma has been around for a year now officially. I was, yeah, definitely just weighed down with all of that stress of like running a business and trying to build a platform and all of the logistics, the behind the scenes work. And so my experience with TikTok, very similar. This year, actually in February, Spirit was like, you need to get on TikTok. And I was like, what's going on? That's the craziest thing I've ever heard. I don't know about that. But like I did. And it really was just for fun because I love reading tarot, and I'd read on YouTube for a year and a half. At that point in time, I was taking a break from YouTube because channeling can be very draining on the body if we don't take time to actually integrate and come back into our physical bodies. And I definitely learned that the hard way through extreme burnout and just having to kind of put it all aside for a little while. So February of this year, I was like, oh, I'll just kind of start reading tarot, like for fun, because I like to read cards. And yeah, it's the act of creating a video, I found it to be very enjoyable. So that was surprising how much I liked making TikToks initially. And I almost felt like embarrassed. I'm like, what? I like making TikToks. What is going on in the world? And very quickly, actually on the 22nd of February, I was up all night. I had finished my first website and was still so unsatisfied with it, but I did finish it. And that was something I'd been working on for a whole year. And I just took a moment to write down my intentions of like really what I wanted to do. And I was like, let's see if this TikTok thing really works. Like, I want to grow. I want to meet community. I want to find my people. I want to show up as authentically as I can. I remember that was very strong in my mind. Like, I'm not just reading tarot. That's what I do a lot, but I'm going to infuse who I truly am into my videos. And that was something I didn't fully do on YouTube because I was still kind of becoming familiar with who I am and how I feel called to share my message. So yeah, it was really just experimentation, and things started to grow fast. I have no words. It was like waking up to like 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 followers, subscribers, just on repeat. And I was like, oh my gosh, okay, it's happening. I need to really get my business logistics figured out, because there was an influx of people asking for readings, wanting my services. And it was really like, on the 2222 portal, I felt like I had timeline hopped. And that was the first time I had did it so consciously. In the past, I like you said, you've been astral projecting since you were 5 years old. Like, yeah, I think that some of us just have that ability, probably because of the work that we did in prior lifetimes. There's been training. I had never done it so intentionally, but like just waking up with an influx of people who were receiving the messages and wanting to work with me was like, wait, okay, like there's something here. And I remember one of my friends said, Shayla, this is so awesome. Like, people are coming to you because this is what you're supposed to be doing. You're walking in your North Node. And I was like, whoa, okay. Maybe she's right. My North Node is in Leo, my 12th house. So I've always just naturally kind of been a pioneer when it comes to spirituality, the unconscious mind, et cetera, et cetera. And it's been so inspiring to meet so many like-minded people. And I believe that that timeline hop was so powerful in February because I had begun to realize that there's an actual spiritual community out there. There are actual people who are doing the work that I had been doing and then some when I was alone. So yeah, it was a like kind of like a cracking open, and felt like a homecoming, connecting with particular people on TikTok. And okay, so you came up on my For You page, and I was just like, who is that? Like, you need to follow her. Like, it was just pure truth. I remember that was the first thing I thought, was like, you're such a clear channel. And just the way that you spoke, I could feel that it wasn't your ego, it wasn't just you, like you were pulling from a higher source. So initially I was just like drawn to you. And then things continued to grow. And I realized that I was going to burn myself out if I kept trying to do this alone with the goals that I have set for myself. That was a really big leap of faith for me, because yeah, like you had to keep the spiritual side to you hidden. I also experienced that with my family, and then just unconsciously took that on as a belief that it's not safe for me to be spiritual or to share this aspect of myself with the world. You really made me aware, just through your presence, of like the lack of trust that I had been holding on to within myself. So I've been pushing and pushing and almost like striving for what the external world says success is, without being fully conscious of that, even though I had spent so much time, like promising myself like it's about the internal, not promising myself, but just really working on cultivating that sense of internal happiness and not trying to pursue. But it was like once I got a taste of it, like this like influx of more abundance and connection, I was like, I want more. And so it's been a really interesting journey, just like seeing myself, like the depths of myself, and recognizing some of the places where I'm still not fully living in alignment, but I'm human and I'm working on it and I'm becoming aware. And one of those things was, again, trusting people to bring people on board to help with this project that I hadn't shared with anybody. So I decided that it was time for me to ask for help. And I interviewed people for like 3 days straight. But when you came on the interview, I realized immediately, I was like, that's the girl from TikTok. Literally in my mind, I was like, I think that she's the one. Like, you were just very mature. And I felt like, well, your marketing background was very impressive. And I was like, oh my gosh, maybe that is exactly what I needed. And it just felt vibrationally aligned, like everything. And yeah, I know that that was the workings of spirit to ultimately cross our paths. And then also just like hearing about the synchronicities between how we were raised is so crazy. Like every day there's something else that parallels. So I'm really grateful to be given the opportunity to work alongside you and to be building the community and the business and ultimately the spiritual revolution that we're ushering in. So yeah, with all of that being said, do you want to share a little bit about building community or bringing more people on, and kind of like what you feel in that sense?
Well, we've been trying to do different things, and one of the things that you just said really brought up something from the Gene Keys that actually Spirit had me read yesterday. Like, it was like, just open the book, and it went to this page talking about synchrony and how, like, when we try to work in the 3D world, it's like this like mixed match of energies, and it's just like it's power versus force, right? You're forcing your way and you're not using your internal power, which is your authenticity. But when you step in line with your authenticity, you're working with the universe, right? You have synchronicity happen in synchrony, which is how you're supposed to work with the world, not you fitting into the world, but the world conforming and working around you, your actual self. And I just see so much of that in our work because, you know, it's like we don't always need to know exactly how things are gonna go. We just need to step in alignment with that. So for me, for instance, before we talk about the community, I wanted to bring this up. I wanted to create a course before we even started talking, right? So I started building up this material and like writing everything out, and it's already like written out. I just need to take the videos for it. But what I'm realizing now through like us pivoting how Gamma Evolution was going to offer services, that actually that course is now going to be inside of a larger course. So it wasn't that I was wrong or I was off track. I was just following the breadcrumbs of what I needed to do at that time. And now it has a greater purpose. And that's what keeps happening. Like we keep pivoting. Like originally you want to have a membership website, and now you realize, oh my gosh, like people are actually really being impacted by your one-on-one sessions. So you're like, let me focus on that. That's where you and your authentic feeling comes into play to impact other people in the way that it's supposed to, the way it was designed to. So the really beautiful thing is, like, as we've been taking these steps, as we feel intuitively guided, like you wanted to do a weekly call where we talk to the community, and we also wanted to open up calls to talk to other healers and like see how we could work together. Turns out that like all the ways that we thought we were going to work with people right now are not happening, but instead this other beautiful thing is happening where so many people are telling us the same story. Around COVID time, they had an awakening. Now they're realizing their whole life they've had gifts that they have been suppressed, and all of these other things happening. They, you know, have been tapping into shadow work and getting over depression and all of these stories where it's like, there's no freaking way you're going to tell me that there's not a collective awakening happening when this many people are having these experiences. And then it's like spirit's just guiding us basically to bring it all in, bring it together. How do we coalesce? How do we work together? How do we invite more synchrony to happen? How do we invite the universe to work with us in our natural, authentic nature? So it's definitely shifting and changing like how we're actually going to work with the community. But we have a Discord now, which is a community space where people can talk about their spiritual journey. They can talk about the different things that they're going through, the gifts that they're activating. You know, if they're starting their own business, they can promote their own business and say like, hey, I'm just now learning about, like, let's say human design, and like I want to offer someone a reading because it's something that I'm getting used to. We have a space for that now. So it's not like people have to feel awkward, you know, on social media, and maybe they're not ready to like fully step out and have their own TikTok or something like we have, but they still have a place to come and congregate. I think that's super freaking empowering.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it really feels like that's kind of the divine call right now, is just to like hold the space, like build it and they will come, so to say. So you've been doing amazing at setting up all of the online platforms and organizing everything, and just like really creating that space for the community to come in and to interact on a whole new level. Something that many of us are going through and have been going through since COVID is this deep feeling of loneliness. I think that we're collectively waking up to the fact that the way that we've been living it's not aligned with how we're meant to live, like how human beings naturally interact. We need each other. Pack vibes. Sorry, Katie. We need each other. And again, like the healing that can happen when we join forces is just amplified, because like if somebody is fully aligned with their heart and they're having a great day, they're beaming, they know how to energetically shield themselves, they come across somebody in the community who's a little bit low, who's a little bit down, that heart energy has the ability, the law of entrainment, to pull the other person up into a higher vibrational frequency. And we never solve problems, we outgrow them. We choose a different frequency. It's all about elevation of the energetic frequency of us and the planet, and that's the grand shift that's occurring right now. And yeah, the way that it's going to happen is by coming together. So I'm really excited as well to kind of see like what we feel called to do moving forward and how we feel called to continue to hold space, and also for the new energies that are coming in. It's so cool because everybody's so unique. And when I started interviewing people for the role of personal assistant, which turned into marketing manager, which again, like just how awesome, I didn't realize that that's what I was looking for. I began to realize, just like on a deeper level, how many amazing people are out there with all of these gifts and all of these talents. And I was like, there has to be a way. There has to be a way to create some sort of platform or structure, so to say, for all of us to come together and to start doing this work together. And I really feel like that is the next chapter. Recently, the 666 portal on the 24th of June, another timeline hop collectively, and it feels like we really are being prepared to actually come together now. And with Pluto retrograde right now, also it's like we talked extensively about this, the essentially the shadow aspects of our relationship dynamics, or how we connect with people, it's all coming up to the surface. And we're really being faced with our own shadows and having to analyze like how we've previously shown up in the world. So when we do come together and connect, it's connecting from a healthy place rather than a toxic place, and continuing to strengthen the mycelial bond between all humans, because we're all always connected. We've just kind of lost touch with that. So yeah, the Discord space is awesome. We've had a handful of people come in, and it's just been really cool to feel into everybody's energy, and also to see that people are actually interested in coming together. But yeah, recently, since being on TikTok, the most common theme amidst everybody that I work with is, one, I need to quit my job, and two, I'm awakening, or all of these things are happening and I don't really know what's going on, and three, I'm looking for community. I think the course that we're creating right now, it's going to be very impactful. I'm going to be giving the metaphysical perspective of what it takes to be a business owner, a spiritual entrepreneur, and Bree is going to share her magic with her marketing and advertising background. So I think it's really needed right now, just kind of like guidelines, yeah, like feedback from experience of how this can actually be one's life, one's reality. I know for me, I spent a lot of time in the dreamer mode of being like, oh, I have these spiritual gifts, it would be so cool to use them. But I didn't actually believe that I could merge the two, because we're living in a very masculine, very square society up until now. I think that we're doing a wonderful job at peacefully kind of like breaking down all of the old societal boundaries and barriers to give rise to this new earth. And we've also talked extensively about the necessity for a new quote unquote economic system. I think that in the moving into the new earth, it is essential that everything that we do is aligned with the natural world and universal law. And so that means, first and foremost, balancing ourselves as individuals to be aligned to our natural self, to be able to share that energy out into the world. And I think that coming together as a community, like seeing the different reflections off the different mirrors that we may encounter, is such a wonderful way to grow and to evolve, and also to constantly come back, kind of like check ourselves with where we're at based off of how the interactions go. Yeah, I'm really excited as well for all of the communal projects. And again, I think that we only grow in power when we decide to come together. And it's really exciting to think of the potential timelines for where all this can go, as we are kind of like still in that mode of laying our foundation in order to thrive.
Yeah, it's so exciting. So if anyone is here wondering how they can be a part of what we're building and what we're growing, first of all, just be authentic with where you're at. Step in faith that, I mean, we both did it. That if you act in faith and your authenticity of who you truly feel called to become, or who you really are, just take those steps and reach out to the community that you can find. Be a part of our Discord community. Reach out to us, email us. We will find a place for you, and we'll try to connect you with the resources that we have, and stay connected so that way you can be aware of things as they're evolving, because there's a place for every single person watching this right now.
We are so excited to hear from you, and thank you guys for your time today. We look forward to what future timelines hold, and give thanks for all that you are and all that you shall be.